This episode of RetroBlasting is brought to you by Yojo Outlet and Museum Center. They know vintage toys, and when it comes to vintage toys, knowing is the entire battle. I got an email from Michael. Michael wanted a diecast Voltron. He'd wanted it his whole life. And when he finally got one, he found one for a deal. The Black Lion had a broken back wing and a broken tail. And he tried to repair it himself. And that's when he emailed me, because when he was trying to repair it, something dislodged and fell inside the Black Lion. And he was looking for advice on how to open up the Black Lion and get the pieces out and continue to work on repairing the toy. And in the process of the message, I saw him saying, if I can't figure out a way to get it open the right way, I'm going to use a power drill. And I said, don't do that. Just send it to me. I can deal with this in 10 minutes and get this thing knocked out for you. And at the time, I didn't know about the broken tail so much. I only knew about the broken wing. So he sent me the Black Lion, and I have all of the parts here, some of which I acquired, some of which he was intending to use. So we're going to fix this Black Lion's wing and its tail, and I'm going to show you how to disassemble and reassemble a vintage die-cast Matchbox Black Lion. So let's get started. All right, so we have Michael's Black Lion here. This is a Matchbox GB36 made in Japan Black Lion. We know that from the label that's between the Black Lion's rear legs. Now, the first step to fixing a Black Lion to disassemble it is to remove the rear legs, and that can be achieved by unscrewing the screws that hold them into the hips, the hip screws. You're going to want a dedicated driver for this. Some of the interchangeable tinkering screwdrivers, you know, they have a thicker handle on them, but you're going to want something dedicated so that you can get where you need to go on these toys. So we're going to use one of these, and I'm going to undo this Phillips head screw. All right, now inside here is also a spring, and I'm not going to pop that spring out to show you, but just know there's a spring in there that goes with a capped screw. The screw has a kind of wide head on it, and you're going to want to retain those and put those back where they were. So there is a spring in there. If it comes out with the screw, just make sure that the spring goes back in first and then the screw. All right, so we're going to do this to the other one. All right, so that one's off and the screw is still in there, which is good because that means I won't have to try and futz with the screw to get it back in. All right, so now you see that you have two posts for the legs. You can take the opportunity to clean those off if you like. You can make sure there are no cracks in them. They're die-cast metal, so they're pretty hard to break unless you really abuse the toy. All right, now the main event. How do we get the rest of the torso open? Well, the first thing we have to do is count the screw holes. So there is a screw hole here, a screw hole here, and there is a screw hole inside right above the tail. So if the tail is flipped down, there's a screw hole right there. And those are the ones we need to undo to get into the lion. So let's get these out of here. You want to make sure that you're not over torquing on the screwdriver in either direction. You don't want to strip the screws and you don't want to strip the plastic. So be patient, go slowly. Nope, it's not ready to come out yet. That screw is really holding on. All right, well, forget it. We're going to move on to the next one. I think it's loose enough. All right, well, we're just going to move on to the third one and see if we can get this whole thing to pop off. Okay, I feel it wanting to... There we go. So now this whole section pops off and away, and we have our torso front that we're now looking at from the back. This is the piece we don't need, and so we can set this piece aside to do the repair that we want to do. So I will set this over here. All right, now we have our back piece. Let's see how many screws. Okay, the screws seem to be holding. Not really sure why they're doing that, but let's get them out of there. I just like to start with a clean slate when I'm doing a reassembly. All right, so these 3 screws, which do not have wide heads on them, are now off to the side. These will be the 3 screws that you will put back in. All right, so if we flip this over, we have a screw that holds the head on, and depending on how adept you are with mechanical items, you may want to remove that and pop the head off while you're working with the rest of it. I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to smash the head down or do anything that's going to break the neck piece, so I'm going to leave that well enough alone. Okay, now the wings are held on by screws that are usually inside, so they're assembled from the inside. They're wide-headed screws. Now, where did this screw go? Well, we heard the rattling around. If I take this, I can see it right here, and I dump it. You have a wide-headed screw and the spring that went with it that were inside the body. Those are what we're going to need to put the wing back on. Thankfully, they were inside there. It'd be very hard for them to escape. Okay. So do we repair the wing first or the tail? Well, the wings are kind of in the way of the tail section to begin with. So why don't we start by replacing this tail? This tail is not only broken at the base, but it's also broken in the hinge. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. There is a screw behind this sticker that I do not want to disturb because I don't want to damage the foil sticker. Thankfully, the repair point is at the lower end of this yellow section. I'm hoping that if I just disconnect the lower end of the section, I can manipulate it enough to get this tail out and the new tail in without disturbing this piece. There are 2 screws that hold the bottom section on, so I'm going to remove those. I'm going to set those over here so I don't get them confused with these. You always want to put the right screws back in the right places. Okay, so now this should, on some level, loosen just enough that I can safely remove this tail. This large yellow peg is part of this assembly, and I'm trying to push it up without harming the rest of the toy. Okay. You can see that it's coming up from the sides. Can I get it just to a point where I can manipulate it? Okay. You can see it trying to come out from the sides. Like it's, if I can just get some added clearance, I just don't want to stress Trying not to break things while trying to fix things is the name of this game. This peg really doesn't want to move anymore. Okay, I'm going to remove this head because I'm getting really nervous because I'm going to have to turn this thing upside down. So you take this one screw out. Come on. Okay, that screw comes out. Oh, a piece of the tail came out, one of the broken pegs. And then you gently just pull straight and that piece pops out. Okay. Now I can set this down like this and oh, I got it. I got it past the Come on. Work with me. Oh, this is nerve-wracking. Okay, let's see if we can... All right, good. I want to put just enough pressure on this to lift it up, but I don't want to have to go under this sticker to unscrew the rest of it. So I'm trying to be really careful. Okay. Whew. All right. It sounds worse than it is. All right. All right. It's out. All right. Now that that's out, we're going to put our replacement tail in. Which is a actual original tail from a GB36. It is not a repro or anything like that. There is a burgeoning repro parts market for Voltron, but it is not something that I would consider going toward at this time. So here is our tail, our intact tail. This is an intact belt piece that came with it, but I don't need to use that, so I'm just going to set this to the side. All right, so we have our tail. It's going to eventually sit like this, but for the purposes of installation, we're going to install it this way. Please let this work. We want those pegs to go underneath. We want to do this without breaking the tail we've got, so if I torque that, it's going to break. All right. For the safety of this wing, I'm going to unscrew this screw here and take this wing off. Whew. Okay. Now that it is in place, we line it up, we line the pins up with the loop in the cutout in the yellow spine of the lion. And now we just want to gently press this whole piece God. Okay. Nothing's broken. The tail is intact. Just want to get these pieces back down. All right. Everything's all right. We now have a working tail for our black lion. I am happy to say that. All right, so now we're going to put these wings on. All right, now that we have our wing back in place, we take the spring, remember that spring, and we put it into the screw hole over the actual area where you're going to be putting the screw. Now you have your wide-headed screw, and you're going to put that in over the spring and into the hole. It is a fiddly process, as Toy Polloi would say. Remember, you want to make sure that it's tight, but you don't want to over torque anything that you're doing because you don't want to strip the plastic. All right, so this wing is back on. This was the wing that was original to the piece. Now, Michael did send along the broken wing. He was hoping to take the pin out of this and use the hinge piece for a 3D printed wing that he had acquired. This is the 3D printed wing, which comes with black pins made out of, I assume, 3D printed material. Maybe they're metal. I'm not really sure. Trying to get this pin out of 40-year-old plastic is next to impossible. In order to do that, I would end up destroying the pin and possibly destroying this swivel joint in the process. On top of that, this 3D printed part, while it would look great with a matching wing, it doesn't look great next to an original wing. So I sourced an original GB36 wing. And what you should know about these is that you always want to get them with that hinge piece on there, because it's always hit or miss whether or not a pin is going to come out of a die-cast Voltron lion. There's just no telling with Japanese robots if those pins are going to come out or not, and I don't like to mess around with them. All right, so we're going to fold this up the way that it would be for the left configuration. So it's going to be, let's see. And when you're repositioning these, always make sure, because these white hinges are prone to cracking, never pull it here to reposition the wing. Always manipulate it right at the hinge point. Hold the hinge, not the edge of the wing, because this creates too much leverage, and that's how the hinges get broken. So we're going to be going this way. So very carefully, we are okay. All right, so that is what we want it to look like right there. I'm just going to check this wing for any major cracks. I see a minor crack, but that's to be expected with these. So the best advice I can give you is to just pick a position and then don't really mess with it after that. My childhood one has cracks in it. A number of ones that I've seen and own have slight cracks in them. This one is only very slight. It's very usable, and it looks a lot better than the printed version. The printed version just doesn't look quite right yet. This would only really work if you needed 2 wings. But since we have one original wing, might as well put on the other. All right, we're going to do the same process we did before. We're going to take the screw. We're going to put it over the post, and then we're going to take the spring and put it over the screw post. I can't keep that straight. And then we're going to take the screw and position it and then screw that in. Don't torque it too hard. And now we have 2 wonderful lion wings that are intact. Like I said, there is some mild cracking on this one, but nothing that I would write home about. Okay, so just treat those wings gingerly, regardless of what condition they're in. All right, let's put our lion back together. First, we're going to take the head, and we're going to slot it onto this post. So the head is going to slide right in here. It has 2 sort of guide pins that you want to make sure you've gotten around. Okay, we have our screw here. There we go. Okay, I don't think that's going anywhere. All right, so that's done. Now, we're going to put this back on the body. So we're going to flip this over like this and lay it down over its front legs until you have a good seam line. It's pretty easy to line everything up on this lion. All right. Now, before we do that, because I almost forgot, we need to secure that yellow piece back on. So we're going to take our 2 screws and put them back in those 2 lower holes. It's real important to make sure those go back in. Don't want to do anything too tightly, like I said. Okay. Now that those are in, I'm going to put the body back on. Okay. Now that that is lined up, we're going to put our 2 screws back in the top and 1 screw right above the tail. Be careful not to hit the tail on the table while you do this, because you don't want to break the tail if you've just repaired it, and you don't want to break an original tail if you've just repaired something else inside the lion. All right, last screw. This one's going to be a pain. And of course it went in upside down. There we go. Sometimes it just takes a lucky drop. All right, now that that's done, we're going to fold that tail up and these wings back for safety. And now we're going to put the rear legs back on. Now there is no particular orientation to reattach the legs because they are meant to turn. You just want to make sure that that spring is inside and that the cap screw goes back in the right way. And literally not like how it just fell just now. Let's see if we can coax it. Come on. Nope. I always like to have a variety of screwdrivers because some grab the screws better than others. All right, that's one. And now for the other side, and thankfully the screw and spring stayed inside that one, so we don't have to worry about going after them. And right as you feel it tight, you stop. You don't give it an extra quarter turn or anything like that. You do not force this. This is not automotive. All right, so let's see how we did. I'm going to set this guy up with his legs out. And there we have it. We have an intact Black Lion from Voltron, fully repaired with an original wing replaced and an original tail replaced. This is going to look great in Michael's collection. I'm going to send this right back to him. I hope this has been helpful for any of you working on a Voltron right now. Yeah, I think this result is really, really nice, and I understand that Michael is going to be using some monochrome to redo the legs. He's redoing some of the legs on his existing Lions right now that are still back at his house. So we're going to send this back to him. Thanks for watching this, guys, and we'll see you on the next video.